Galish. And finally, Mr. Kortesmaki, you're recognized for 5 minutes as well.
Well, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to come here and speak my part. Hello, I'm Jerry Kortesmaki. I'm the owner of London Road Rental Center in Duluth, Minnesota and Superior, Wisconsin. I started my business new. I did not buy an existing business. I started February 1st of 2002. My business has 10 full-time employees and 20 seasonal employees. We have grown from nothing to about a $2 million volume with a $2.5 million inventory in 17 years. The Bush-era tax cuts of 2001 and 2003 had a huge impact on how I depreciate my equipment. I use Section 179 and bonus depreciation every year. This is one of the tax laws that's really working for me and for all small businesses. I've came to D.C. many times and lobbied hard to make this permanent. I've been able to grow my business, my company faster because of it, and also our economy has grown continually because when I buy equipment like excavators and skid steers, it creates a lot of jobs in the U.S. Thousands of other small businesses use it just like I do. I'm kind of addicted to it. I either spend the money or have to pay a lot more taxes because I do not have the depreciation built up to write it off. This has really helped me grow my business faster and continually. The Job Cuts Act of 2017 saved me about $7,200 last year. With health insurance going up another 10% this year and the commercial auto insurance going up 30%, the money was used up fast. We really needed that tax cut to help cover and maintain things. We are an S Corp, so the pass-through tax cut that came through is very important to small businesses like mine. The rising cost of health care and the fact the Affordable Health Care Act took the health insurance away from most of my employees. We used to have a $1,000 deductible and the employees could afford that. Now that the premiums have doubled and the deductibles have went to $6,000, the employees do not have the ability to cover that $6,000 deductible. So basically they do not use their health care plans. Simply put, the Affordable Care Act has been a disaster for small business. We chase the insurance changes every year and it's a real hassle to keep up with it. It takes a lot of time and energy trying to do the best for our employees, balancing cost with benefits. I feel I've been successful despite the government, not because of it. Things like the salary employee pay issue a few years ago caused a lot of issues. I had to change my pay structure for my management people because of the threats of fines and such, and then it was defeated or went away. That issue cost me a lot of time and money. The amount of regulation we have to deal with is huge. We have 3 pickup trucks we use for deliveries. Most of our deliveries are within 100 miles, and almost all of them are within 25 miles. We are in 2 states. The businesses are about 8 miles apart. All of our drivers have to be 21 because 18-year-olds can't cross that state line. They can drive 200 miles in either state, but they cannot drive across that imaginary line between the two. Just a point of interest, an 18-year-old can vote and he can go to war, but he cannot drive across a state line. It's insanity at work. There are so many regulations, just the DOT as an example, with driver's records, drug tests, truck inspections daily and annually. It's a huge cost to keep up on and to track. And then there's the trailers. You have to do the same thing to them. We rent a lot of different types of equipment, and there's ANSI standards, OSHA requirements on scaffolds, ladders, lifts. Very few people understand that ladders are almost outlawed now in this country by OSHA. Then there's the new OSHA silica and dust regulations. The reason I bring this up is we just don't need to know them for us. We're supposed to educate our customers about them. The Tier 4 diesel regulations that went into effect for emissions, they're driving up the costs and making it really tough to maintain our trucks and equipment, and very expensive too. Our new diesel trucks are no longer reliable like diesels were known for. They're continually in for repairs, emissions repairs. And in Duluth, we have winter, not Tier 4 friendly at all. The one from Maine probably runs into that same issue. I've lived the American dream. My wife and I have worked hard for many years to get there. We have jumped through hoops and have learned things I thought I'd never know. We collect sales tax for 14 different municipalities, and we collect federal taxes also. We collect child support and court judgments for our employees. My wife works full-time to keep up with the taxes and the human resource training and records for our little business. Keeping up with the changes in HR and the taxes is a job in itself. Something else to think about. Remember, small business is your tax collectors. We do not get paid to do it. We do not get trained to do it, but if we make a mistake, we sure get punished for it. In my time as a business owner, I think I've heard there's 137 different federal agencies making rules for us to follow. Then you have Congress and the courts. We need to simplify this complicated system and stop any non-elected board or agency from passing any rule or law. We elected you to make the decision, not the bureaucrats. If it doesn't have enough support for Congress to pass it, it shouldn't be a law or a rule. I spend a lot of time working to keep these unelected bureaucrats and these agencies happy. This is one of the largest burdens on my small business and all small businesses. They touch every part of what I do every day, and I don't even have enough time to touch on the employee issues and problems that we're currently having. Thank you very much. I'll answer any questions.
Thank you very much, sir. And with that, I'm going to start by recognizing the ranking member, Mr. Stauber, who has a constituent who's going to be carrying out the opening prayers on the House floor. So we're going to let him ask questions first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Jerry, you had, that was well stated. You and I have talked about those unelected, which you refer to as bureaucrats, putting legislation that affects small businesses, and what you and I have talked about, and which this committee understands, 99% of our economy is small business. Yep. And we, as a small business owner myself, for 29 years, there's ups and downs, there's struggles, but what we need to do is make sure that when we put legislation forward that we understand the consequences, and it has to be a positive, a net positive for our small businesses. So I've got just two questions, actually three. The first one, you alluded to it in your statement, but did the Tax Cut and Jobs Act have a positive effect on your business?
Yes, it did. A very positive effect.
And what was what did you say your savings was?
$7,200.
And then the second question is, you've been, what would you say if you had to pick your number one roadblock to be successful in relation to the federal government? What would be the number one roadblock?
God, that's a gigantic thing I know currently, and it goes back to what we're battling with the employee issues, is this 18 versus 21 on the Department of Transportation rules. And it's a huge hindrance. We have a young gentleman that's 19 years old now. He's been driving trucks in Wisconsin, or he has to start in Minnesota to do it because he can't cross that line. And this young guy can drive a trailer as fast backwards as he can forward after doing this for years. But he can't drive across that crazy line. And finding people.
And that crazy line for the listeners here is the bridge between Duluth, Minnesota, and Superior, Wisconsin.
Yeah, and
the
they're
Blotnick
heavily
and the Bong Bridge.
You know, so that and again, taxes is the other big thing. The amount of money that we spend every year with depreciation, with accountants, and with planning for the tax. You know, and it goes back to the 179 has been great. But I'm addicted to the spending because I have to, or I have to give the money to the government. So that's a choice I make, which granted has been great for the economy. It's been fantastic because every year now I spend more money every year. I project what I'm going to grow. I project how much I spent last year. And, you know, John Deere, Moline, or, you know, out of Moline, Illinois, they love me. We've got a lot of yellow big steel out there. So.
And then the last question, Jerry. You know, you commented that you have come out to Washington and testified several times. From your perspective, what can we as a committee work on to make sure that small businesses like yours thrive?
Balancing all these regulations against cost. Every time these regulations come up, there has to be a formula in there to understand the fact that it costs us so much money. And somehow, as they go forward, and all of these other Department of Transportations, OSHA, all these, as they're having their meetings outside of you, again, if there's a way to regulate them to make it that they have to bring stuff to you to get it passed, instead of just them making the rules and making the changes. And, you know, even their ability to tax is totally wrong because you're my congressman. I elected you to make these decisions and to make these things. I did not elect them. So.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Kortesmaki. I can say that, you know, we've been here, you know, several months now as a freshman, and I really appreciate this committee talking about some of the exact same things you had mentioned about the repercussions of legislation or the repercussions of legislation by unelected folks.
It's rulemaking that really kills us. It's not just legislation, it's rulemaking.
Agreed. And we've talked about that as well. Yeah. So I would just want to, in closing, Jerry, I want to just congratulate you and Kathy on that American dream. You're living it. You're employing people, And I want to say from our perspective of Minnesota's 8th Congressional District, you have been a steward of small business, and you understand it. And of course, your affiliation with the National Federation of Independent Business, they understand small business too, and we appreciate that. So I want to thank.
A couple of seconds left.
Yeah, go
The
ahead.
thing on the health care issue, what it did to taking it away from my employees, the sad story when my mechanic crashed his ATV and we had the $1,000 deductible, he was able to take care of that in 1 year. With the $6,000 deductible, and this guy makes close to $50,000 a year, he's not super poor, he's not wealthy, that would devastate him. We need to figure out how to fix this health care issue that's just, for small business to offer it has become such a burden, and I don't want to just turn my employees over to government-controlled health care. It's something that I don't see working.
Thank you, Mr. Kortesmaki, and I appreciate your attendance. Back to you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.